here this morning with Brian Johnson, Format Approved Director of Online Training, and Wendy Whitmore, CIO of Format Approved. Today we're going to be talking about their HIPAA and Security Certification online training. Healthcare IT Central has recently partnered with Formed to offer this training, and we're getting a lot of interest in these programs. So we've set up this series of webinars to answer the frequent questions that we're getting and to answer any additional questions that anyone listening may have. So Brian, let's start with you, if you don't mind just kind of giving us a brief overview of Formed's online training, and we'll start from there.
Sure. So for folks on the line who may not know about our training, Formed Approved is a leader in HIT education online. All of our courses are hosted on a robust learning management system. So students are able to purchase a course, log in immediately, begin their training. We'll talk a little bit later about how the training works. It's a combination of text and multimedia and assessments. But really, we rely on subject matter experts throughout the industry to create what we believe is the gold standard in HIT training that we then offer out to our students and partners through our online learning system.
Okay. So can you tell us a little bit then about how the training works?
Okay. I had to catch up on the slides. So I was mentioning this a moment ago. The way our training works is, as I said, everything's hosted in a learning system. So when you log in, you begin to move through modules of the course. A typical course may be made up of 10 to up to 25 modules. The CHSP course we're mostly talking about today is made up of 11 modules, for example. So it's fairly concise. But each of those modules is made up of a text lesson that is about a 10-minute read, so we call this our 10-10-10 method. Then you've got the 10-minute multimedia review of that same content, so that gives people another chance to look at the material. And it's also good for people who may not have the best retention with text or vice versa. And then there's a 10-question assessment at the end of each of those modules, just to be sure that the student comprehended the material. Why is this important? Because studies have shown that this maximizes retention. Students come out of our training really understanding the material, and it's also entirely self-paced, which is a nice feature. So if you go and take that assessment at the end of the module and you find that you're getting a lot of the questions wrong, you can just go back and look at all of the material again and then go through and get the correct answers. And then all of this culminates in a final exam. That exam is made up of questions from the quizzes, so our students are typically very well prepared to face that final examination. And before, if we just move back for just a moment, we didn't cover entirely everything about the what is Formed training. I just wanted to mention that our training is accredited for nursing CEUs through ANCC and college credit through ISET. And some of our courses are also accredited for HEMA CEUs, for our ICD-10 course, for example. But just some extra notes there about the accreditation for the training.
Also, I just want to pipe up for a moment, Gwen. I noticed some people are starting to post questions into the question box. We did not yet mention that we will answer those questions at the end of this very short 30-minute session, actually probably about a 20-minute session. We'll address any questions, so feel free to type questions into the chat box, and we will get to them as we finish up.
Okay.
So our next question is, what of employers recognize Formed training? Is that correct there, Gwen?
Yes. Yes.
So you can see on your screen some of the education partners we have who currently offer our training. You can see it's a variety of folks. We've got a prestigious medical university, Rosalind Franklin, uses our training in a number of different ways. Cal HIPSO is the big California Regional Extension Center. They use our training. We've got medical associations such as the Florida Medical Association offering the training out to their members. I don't know if you want to comment on any of these items.
Yeah, EHR providers and vendor providers. So one of the questions that I see popping up on the screen asks if this training is relevant to MSPs that have healthcare clients, and we will address that more later. But yes, indeed, so much so that we actually have distribution partners in that space in healthcare and computer hardware and such for HIT that provide our training out to their MSPs.
Okay.
So,
Brian, before we get into this, I just wanted to reiterate one thing that you said that I think really separates the ForMed's training approach from the others, and there are others out there, but one of the main reasons why I chose ForMed as Healthcare IT Central's partner was that 10-10-10 approach, and also the fact that because it's online, you can access it and go back through the modules that you need a refresher course on. So, I think that's really important to point out is that it's module based, which means that you may be very proficient in one specific area, but maybe not not as up to speed on some other areas. So you can go back. You don't have to go back through the entire course again. You can go module by module, and I just think that that's a really helpful feature for retention, but also just for review.
thank you, Gwen. I think that is an important point, and it's especially important when you're talking about something like HIPAA, because there's some of our education that we offer that really there aren't comparable courses available from anyone. But when it comes to HIPAA, there's a lot of education out there to try to help people meet their HIPAA compliance needs. And we look at it regularly. We sort of survey the landscape, and most of what we see is not of high quality. And there's a couple of reasons why. Sometimes they obviously have not relied on experts. Our HIPAA education was developed in concert with Mike Semmel, who's one of the top HIPAA experts in the country. So we often see that education will have errors. It won't be updated necessarily. HIPAA has changed a great deal over the years, which we'll talk about in a moment. But the other thing is what you were alluding to about the learning system. A lot of this stuff, you may go and have a PowerPoint slideshow, which obviously we love PowerPoint. Don't get, I'm not saying anything against that, but it's not the level. It's not the level of rigor that you get through our training. So you're not with us. You're not going to sit through a slideshow and then answer a 5-question quiz. It really teaches you the material comprehensively and lets you move through it at your own pace. So we feel it's a much more rigorous program.
And by partnering with educators and developers of our training that have industry experience, so meaning that they're actually working in the industry and applying their knowledge of their topics in the industry, that has been an important component of our development side as well. So these are not academic lessons so much as they are real-world, real-time training courses.
Absolutely. So just to set the stage for our discussion of HIPAA, I think it's important to note that HIPAA has changed a lot recently, and not everyone is aware of that. The big change that happened was with passage of the HITECH Act in 2009. That changed a lot of rules. And then this last January, the Omnibus final rule, sort of the master set of final regulations from the government around HIPAA and what you have to do to comply, has really changed both the enforcement of it. There's a much more aggressive auditing and breach investigation approach from the government than there used to be, much larger fines than there used to be. But also there's a lot of new rules around business associates, especially business associates. So for instance, that final rule came in January. The deadline for business associates to comply is September 23rd. So we're really up against that. That's why I think there's a lot of heightened interest in HIPAA right now. And for folks who may not understand that, a provider is typically, with very few exceptions, going to be what's called a covered entity, meaning that they have always had to comply with HIPAA since it was passed in '96. But a business associate is anyone who comes into contact with protected health information, who might be, say, an MSP, as the question was asking, who might, be an IT specialist who provides support to a provider, but wouldn't be thought of as being in medicine in that sense, and yet now they have to take the same steps to comply with HIPAA as everyone else. So that's just sort of some background on what's going on. Why does CHSP, the Certified HIPAA Security Professional course, why does it help to meet that need? Well, there's a number of reasons. First of all, this is in-depth education. It's it's accredited for 10 hours. Most people seem to finish it in about 6 to 7 hours. But it really covers everything from the security rule, privacy rule, HITECH Act, the business associate agreement requirements, as I was saying, regulatory complexity. It's really a great course. It also provides everything that a student needs to be a designated security officer under HIPAA. So one of the things about HIPAA is everyone who comes into contact with protected health information, which is known as PHI, is required to have HIPAA training. No ifs, ands, or buts. However, every organization is required to have at least one security officer who really has a greater understanding of HIPAA. Yeah. So we're going to talk more about job opportunities in a moment, but if you, regardless of your position, if you have this on your resume, if you can say, I have the training to be a designated security officer, that is going to be a big plus, I think, for anyone looking at you, especially in this time of changing regulations. That's going to be a major standout for you.
Absolutely, and to that point, that it does include what that security officer needs. And to the question, the gentleman whose question was regarding the MSPs, the one thing that, or one of the things that is very, very unique about this training is that we went a step further in answering the needs of our learning audience, and we have included in our CHSP course the legal templates for business associate agreements, both versions, yeah. Internal and external versions, and that business associate agreement is a requirement of the new Omnibus regulation, and so that added value to the course is something that literally nobody else has, and no other HIPAA training that you'll find will have that specific value add.
And everybody has to have business associate agreements now, so
exactly.
It's time to get those in place. If you're an MSP and you do not have business associate agreements with the covered entities that you provide services for, you will be in violation as of September 23rd. So do be aware of that. The other course we should mention is, so the CHSP course is our standard price. It really gives that depth of understanding and provides all of these value adds for people who, and we typically, this is what we offer into, say, if an entire practice needs to get their training. As I said, everyone has to have HIPAA training, but if you just need the bare basics, we have a short, very pragmatic course. It's more focused on behaviors rather than knowledge. It's best practices for complying with HIPAA, and that's also available at a considerable discount. So if you have a large number of people who need HIPAA training, that may be the way to go. Usually what it would be is if you have a practice, let's say there's 10 folks working for the practice, 1 or 2 of them would get the CHSP course so that they could direct the compliance efforts of the entire practice, and then someone who's working at the front desk would probably get the workforce training.
Right, and another important point about that workforce level training is if you are in fact an HIT professional and you're working in that space and you are designated as a security officer, or you're it's your responsibility to oversee that process, then this is a great place to find that workforce training for the folks that you're working with as well.
So this looks like the question that I get the most, Brian and Wendy. People are busy and they have a certain number of resources, and so this would definitely be the question. Who would benefit from completing this course?
Right. So I think we touched on that some, but as I was saying before, anyone who comes into contact with protected health information, first of all, has to have some level of HIPAA training. But I think in this time of change, if you're out there, if you're a job seeker, I could see a variety of opportunities here. Let's say that you are in an administrative assistant role. This would be a huge value add if you could go to an employer and say, look, I can help you. Not only do I understand HIPAA, I can help you ensure compliance. If you look at someone like a nurse, all providers are probably accustomed to getting some HIPAA training at this point. But if you have this certification that shows not only do you understand HIPAA, but you have that depth of understanding and can bring that to the practice, it's just a real standout for you that will make you stand out in the crowd, that you have the HIPAA training that's really going to help the practice meet their needs. Anyone who's in management, who's overseeing these compliance efforts, really needs that level of training. So certainly anyone in a management or security compliance role CHSP is the course you need to take. It will give you the tools you need to actually do your job. So, it varies. I think there's a lot of opportunity depending on your role. Some people absolutely have to have it, but others, I think it would really help them stand out.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so this definitely is near and dear to my heart, and talking about becoming more competitive, and definitely as we're looking at HIPAA and a lot of your other certification classes, my answer is always more education and more knowledge will make you more competitive in the job market.
Absolutely. And so I think we touched on some of this before, but again, I'd like to stress the fact that there's a lot of uncertainty and in some corners even panic because, people have not necessarily done what they should have done even before the regulations changed. And now that the regulations have changed, there's a lot of people who are kind of caught flat-footed to a certain extent. So we said that September 23rd deadline, it's really, how many days are we looking at now? 13? Less than 2 weeks.
Yeah. No.
But this is going to be an ongoing issue for many practices and many of these business associates, people who are MSPs. I mean, it's surprising now who qualifies as a business associate. For instance, a company that simply backs up data on the web, a cloud-based storage program, those are now business associates. So there is a scramble underway to comply, and that is going to continue for some time. I would expect for at least the next 2 years, there's going to be people trying to catch up on HIPAA. And so, again, that just makes you that person that they can look to as a resource to help them do that.
Right. Right. And we're not talking a big time commitment with this particular course at all, right?
Absolutely. And that's what's great about it. That is one of the things that's great about this course, because if you look at HIPAA, if you were to go out there and read the regulations, you're talking about literally hundreds of pages. I believe the Omnibus final rule was nearly 600 pages.
just the final rule.
The final rule.
Yeah, never mind the full boat.
Yeah. So literally thousands of pages. What's great about this course is because we work closely with one of the top experts, we were able to distill all of that into really the core things that you need to know. So it covers a lot of material, but it does it quickly because it's very efficient. It doesn't bog down in things that you don't need to know. It focuses on the things you do need to know, and it's all presented in easily digestible language. I mean, HIPAA will never be, light reading on the beach on a summer afternoon, but we make it as painless as we possibly can here. It's certainly very easy to understand, and this is probably our most popular course. People come out of this course raving about how it helped them understand HIPAA.
Well, painless is good, so that's good to hear. So as far as, let's talk about the logistics of where do we go to get this course, and then of course you've been very generous with the Healthcare IT Central discount. So when do you want to talk about how all that works?
Sure, absolutely. So because you are coming to this particular event through Healthcare IT Central, we obviously want to mention that in our partnership with Gwen and Healthcare IT Central, we have assigned a 20% discount to any of the retail pricing on our courses, including the CHSP, the HIPAA course. So if you go to Gwen's website at healthcareitcentral.com, you will find a button that says certifications in her upper toolbar, and that will take you to the landing page that lists all of our courses, including the CHSP, and you can peruse through the various course offerings and use that 20% discount code that she has listed there, which I believe is capital HITC, to receive that 20% discount.
Great.
That said, if you have any questions about the courses, if you want more information, that landing page that we're talking about through Gwen's site gives a lot of detail about each course, a list of the modules, detail about the continuing education units, all kinds of information, which you can visit that page and peruse a little bit. But if you have any questions, you can also call that 800 number that you see on the screen there, or at that storefront, and in any spot on our website at formatapproved.com, you can hit that live chat button and feel free to ask us any number of questions during our live chat line hours. So again, we're here to answer questions, happy to answer questions at any point. That 800 number is also listed on that page that I mentioned, linked at Gwen's website, and we're happy to field any questions on any of these courses.
And that goes for technical issues if you ever have a problem with the learning system or anything like that, but we also field a lot of questions about HIPAA. I mean, that run the gamut from sort of basic questions about who's a business associate to really sometimes complicated questions about software standards and that sort of thing. And we built up quite a bit of expertise here. If every once in a blue moon, someone asks a question that even we don't know, then we're able to consult with Mike Simmel, our expert. So we are always able to answer your HIPAA questions if you have them. And then, of course, we'll resolve any technical issues you may have. And to reiterate, when you do purchase the course, you'll immediately get an email from our learning system inviting you to log in, and you can begin training immediately. So it's a seamless, automated process that you can also reach out to us if you need any help with anything.
Absolutely. And those, in addressing those two questions, we do have a hard stop at 10 o'clock, but addressing the questions that we have in the box, one of them was from an MSP asking about whether or not the training was relevant to him. And I think we have addressed that to a certain degree, but if anything, I think probably the MSP community finds our training so helpful. We get a lot of feedback on that. We have entire MSP channels, like the ASCII organization, for instance, that has an unbelievable number of members in that group that will take this training and participate in this training. So yes, we can say confidently that the MSP community benefits greatly from this course, in addition to the fact that it gives you that templated agreement for business associates, which I think is a huge value add. And then another question was about, and I think we talked about this as well, there are other training options for HIPAA on the market. What makes ours different? First of all, our learning method makes it different, obviously, and our various value-add components make it different. But in addition, we do have continuing education units from both the ANCC, which is the Nurses Credentialing Center, as well as the IACET, which is an international certifying body for college credit. So the courses have been reviewed and approved on numerous levels. So we feel that our quality and our value is high compared to others.
Yeah, I'd like to address those too. On the MSP front, it's not a terribly technical course, so you certainly don't need to be in IT to understand it, but there's a lot of information in there that would be useful to folks who are MSPs that everyone should understand, frankly. So just a couple brief examples. How do you have to dispose of hardware that has protected health information on it? Why is it that if you have encrypted data, that's not a breach? You don't have to report anything that's encrypted. Everyone working in a healthcare space these days should understand that, but it's particularly useful for people who are MSPs or working in similar fields, because then it gives them guidance on what they need to do if they're having to take a bunch of hard drives out of the practice and take them somewhere. They'll know what to do with that stuff. And if you're in the practice, you'll be able to say to them, hey, you can't just take those hard drives and transport them like that. So there's lots of good information along those lines. On the second question, I'd just like to say it's important to understand there is no official certifying body for HIPAA. That's not the way this one works. The government sets out guidelines for what HIPAA requirements are.
And what the training should include.
Yes,
right.
But it doesn't certify any education. So there's a lot of education out there, but there's no certifying body that says, oh, here's the gold standard for HIPAA education. We believe that we do set that gold standard. Certainly our education has been accredited, so you can trust it. It comes from top experts, as I said, but there is no sort of umbrella organization that sanctions training.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions?
I think that was it from this group so far. So
great. Well,
thank
you, Brian and Wendy, so much. And I'd like to invite everyone to join us too. We've got 2 more in this series next week. We've got the Certified Meaningful Use Professional course that we're going to take a closer look at, and then the following week, the Certified Healthcare Technology Hiring Professional. So if you ever wanted to think about getting into recruiting or need to understand more about that function, that would be a great session to attend.
That meaningful use session is going to be fantastic. I hope people tune in for that one.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
All right.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay. Bye-bye.
You still